Hi everybody, Josh Knight the First here with another episode of Exade Replay, coming to you with episode 29 of the series. Let's get right into it. This week on the show, we see that there is not a problem here at all with having a plot-heavy episode and the opening. We've already got that out of the way, but I can't believe how much information they've given us this episode, so let's just get into the beginning of the episode. So we have a mini recap from last week's episode when Emu, now possessed by Pallad, decides to do his best Rick James impersonation and slaps Poppy right across the face. Now at this point, we see that Emu is no longer in control of himself. It's a pilot situation. He's not in the control seat anymore. It's Pallad. And now we see something very odd here. Emu, now being controlled by Pallad, has transformed into Paradox, Kamen Rider Paradox. And that's something that he only does here at the beginning of the episode, but I thought that was interesting that he was even able to do that. I do think it was kind of odd that he transformed into Paradox instead of Emu transforming into Mighty Action X, although under the control of Pallad. It's interesting that they went with that. But they do explain a few minutes later why it is that the gamer driver didn't come into play directly. After having Graphite back down, who is now clearly back in possession of his Gashikon bug visor, Pallad explains to everybody that because he's a bugster, he can't use the gamer driver. So there's a bit of a disjunct there between his powers and what Emu's capable of, being a human who's been inoculated, or infected in this case, with bugster virus. Now, the big reveal for this episode is something you could have kind of figured out if you were putting everything together, much like all of the other characters are doing back over at the CR. So it turns out that Emu and Pallad's connection goes a little bit further back than we thought. It seems that in the beginning, when Emu was first infected by the bugster virus by Kuroto-dan, the strain of the virus that was inside him was in fact Pallad. As the show illustrates to us in short order, the timeline of this goes a little something like this. So, Kuroto-dan, as a kid, infects Emu with the bugster virus that he sends him. He lets that gestate for several years, then Zaizen Michihiko, Dr. Pac-Man, extracts it from him, and the extraction became Pallad. As such, this is part of what gave birth to the M portion of his personality, and it's that portion that's actually the one that beat Saiba Niko at that tournament all those years ago. Now, with all this information being brought out into the open, this brings up a lot of questions. Mainly, one thing that I'm thinking about here is, was Emu a gamer at all this whole time if the whole responsible personality for that was Pallad? It seems to be the way everyone else is starting to take it when we see that Saiba Niko clearly has made this disjunct between Emu and the M portion of his personality that beat her, since she now sees that was Pallad. So now she's decided to move forward with that plan. I need to defeat Pallad because he's the one who disrespected me at Tekken. Now, we've had Dark Riders before. Other examples would be Ryuga in Ryuki, where he's just a flat-out copy of the main character, or even Kamen Rider Kabuto, where the same thing happened. Here, though, since we see that Pallad and Emu are basically cut from the same cloth to a certain extent, I do like the distinction between the two of them. They're two similar personalities that came out of the same body, but at the same time, they're their own person. I do appreciate the fight that they decided to have where they split up both halves of Mighty Brothers XX into the left and right portions, having this fight between each other. To me, it almost kind of gives off this Superman 3 vibe where Clark Kent is fighting evil Superman, if you've seen that movie before. But point being, I do like all of the points that they're making here, specifically with Pallad telling him, well, I came from your desires. You always wanted somebody to play with as a kid. I came from that. That's the reason why I created Kamen Rider Chronicle, to give you something to play. Now, to that extent, it kind of makes sense, because in terms of age, even though he looks the same age as Emu, he's not as old. He's more like a kid. And when you think about it, Emu was a kid when he came up with Pallad there in the drawing you see in the flashback. So as such, he thinks of things a little bit more simply, and Emu, as more of an adult, can make that distinction between how much he wants to play games versus how much he wants to be a doctor and actually act like a grown-up to a certain extent. And that reflects even more on last week's episode when he said, I don't have time to play. For what it's worth, I like that they're having this argument here between the two halves of one's personality, where you want to enjoy the fun things, the more childish things, but at a certain point you realize you do have to grow up. It's almost a Peter Pan kind of argument. So like I said just a moment ago, everybody at the CR figures this out at the same time that Emu is given this information by Pallad. Now, Poppy has the other half of the focus here in this episode. Now, having been removed from the bugster evil version of herself, she now feels driven to save Emu. He saved me, now it's my turn to give back and save him. The interesting thing about that is, coupled with this desire to help him, she's starting to get these flashbacks of the person she grew out of. These flashbacks seem to involve the young Kuroto-dan talking about a plan to contain the bugster virus. Now, we see that this is a female person that young Kuroto-dan is talking to, so the question now is, who was it that she took over the body of? Now, I have a couple of theories about this. One, more obviously, might be Kuroto-dan's mom. That's a possibility. The other possibility may be a secretary, somebody just working there at the Genmu Corporation. So after continual goading from Pallad, again there in Mighty Brothers the left side, Emu finally decides to fight back. Now Emu should have been more aware of what was going on when he realized, or should have realized, that Pallad was a little too eager to give him the tools that he needed to defeat him, specifically his level 99 Gashot. Now it may have seemed that Emu was able to get the job done using that level 99 Gashot, but remember we've still got plenty of time left in this episode, so clearly something's wrong. As it turns out, this was all part of Pallad's plan, since it seems that the power of rewriting that's there in the level 99 Gashot was just what he needed to make him compatible with the gamer driver. So now he's able to use Genmu's old gamer driver, which I was hoping would come back into play at some point, and uses that along with his Gashot to become the level 99 form known as Perfect Knockout. And admittedly, for a suit debut, it is incredibly fierce. It's well balanced in both short and long range, using the best parts of Knockout Fighter and Perfect Puzzle in harmony. And although it's nice to see that the producers remembered, oh yeah, Snipe's not the only one who can use this Gashot, we should let Brave use level 50 at some point. Clearly neither one of them is a match for this new 99 form for Paradox. At the end of the day, Paradox has clearly thought this through. Neither Snipe nor Brave is any match for him, and he doesn't have to worry about Emu if he keeps possessing him. So he's got all the cards right now. Or does he? While all this is going on, Poppy People Papo decides to investigate the Genmu Corporation and look specifically for Kuroto Dan's old lair where he was working with Pallad several episodes ago. She happens to find a secret room with a chest there containing a gamer driver and a proto Mighty Action X Gashot. Now, for anybody looking at this screams trap. Now it makes sense, clearly Poppy People Papo wants to help Emu with this problem that he's having right now with Paradox, but at the same time she makes the comment, wow, this looks like it wasn't left here that long ago, so clearly it wasn't. It seems that Kuroto Dan has planted this there for a specific reason, which we'll probably see next episode. Next week, we'll see a continued fight between Paradox and Exade, trying to fight for superiority, that's even the name of the title, and at the same time we'll see Genmu reappear, but that's Poppy's voice coming out of him, so is it her or is it him? Who knows? But we'll worry about next week when we get to next week. For right now, I do very much appreciate how they're still keeping the narrative together, tying in all of these loose ends from the beginning of the series, from Heisei Generations, and putting that all into Emu and Pallad's backstory. Now they're even more conjoined together as far as hero and villain are concerned, and that makes for a good story. My thoughts aside though, I want to hear what you guys thought of this episode in the comments below, so let's go ahead and talk about this. First off, Perfect Knockout. What did you think about this form as a debut there for Paradox, and do you think that it's good that we have this together form, or he should have kept these separate forms up to this episode? Also, what about Poppy's memories? Who do you think that she came out of? Was it Kuroto Dan's mother, or was it just somebody who worked there at the Genmu Corporation? And lastly, where do you think we're going with the discovery of this Proto Mighty Action X Gashot? Is this a part of Kuroto Dan's plan, or is it just something that Poppy was lucky to find? You guys tell me. And of course, during the week, you can always talk to me over on social media. On Twitter, I'm @JoshKnight1st. This has been episode 29 of Exade Replay for episode 29 of the series We're Me. I'm Josh Knight the First. I'll see you guys again next week.